Hello everyone, my name is Delicacy, and this is Video Delicacies, where we seek to taste the greatest flavors that old games have to offer. I just played Custom Robo, which was developed by Noise and published by Nintendo. It was released for the Nintendo 64 in 1999. It's the first game in the Custom Robo series, which spans 3 home console games and 2 portable ones. The first 3 of those games were never officially released in the West, so I think that when a lot of people think about Custom Robo, they picture the GameCube one. But I had never played any of these games, so why not start from the start? The original Custom Robo received an English fan translation from a team called Star Trinket in 2017. I played it on my actual Nintendo 64 using a Summer Cart 64 flash cartridge. Custom Robo began by committing a minor pet peeve of mine. It asked me to name the protagonist without so much as showing me a picture of them. Not really knowing who I was naming, I went with the name Amro, short for Custom Robo. Amro's mother was a medical researcher, and the family had just relocated to a new city for her job. This city was on the cutting edge of robotics technology, and a popular hobby among the children there was Custom Robo. Wanting to help Amro fit in among their peers, she got them a Custom Robo named Ray as a gift. The new city happened to also be where Amro's cousin Shinichi lived. Shinichi was one of my favorite characters. I found his portrait extremely endearing, and I just generally appreciate a Tails-type sidekick. Shinichi showed Amro to the nearby Robo station to teach them about Custom Robo. While there, Amro ran into their polite classmate Yurie. Yurie didn't play Custom Robo herself, but she was there to cheer on her older brother Mamoru, who just happened to be the reigning Custom Robo champion. Robo battles took place on a platform called a Holosseum deck, on which commanders controlled their robos using their thoughts. If you're like me, Custom Robo's premise might remind you a little of the Clamp manga Angelic Layer. As it happens, this game was released a few months into Angelic Layer's run, so it seems unlikely that either influenced the other. Shinichi led Amro to an open Holosseum deck to teach them about battling. Robos start each match in a die-shaped form called a Robo Cube, which is loaded into a device called the Cannon Bot. My cube was always in the left red arm. During the 3 seconds leading up to the match, I could aim that arm in any direction. And when time ran out, the cubes were fired onto the stage. Once the cubes landed, they would unfold into their Robo form. How long it took to get up depended on which side the die landed on. Head up was the fastest, and feet up was the slowest. As soon as my Robo was up, I could start battling. You can move your Robo with the analog stick, you can jump and air dash using R, and your Robo has 4 different attacks which are tied to the other buttons. The A button fires the Robo's gun. It automatically aims toward the opponent. Pressing any C button does a melee attack. Like the gun, it aims automatically. Holding B allows you to aim a reticle, and releasing the button launches a bomb at that location. Finally, you can deploy a pod, which is kind of a slow-moving missile that travels in the direction that the analog stick is pointed when you press the Z button. Most types of pods can have up to 2 out simultaneously. Learning to effectively use all 4 types of attacks in harmony was a very satisfying part of the game. After a Robo has been hit multiple times, it'll be knocked down, indicated by the down text. A downed Robo can't fight back, but it can still be damaged. However, after recovering, the Robo will enter a brief period of invulnerability, indicated by the rebirth text. You can use these messages to know when to keep attacking and when to back off. The battle ends once either Robo's energy has been reduced from 1000 to 0. After defeating another commander, I would acquire the data for their Robo's parts, and I was then able to use them to customize my own Robo. I was required to use the Robo Ray throughout the story mode, but I could freely change Ray's gun, pod, bomb, and legs to my liking. After some practice battles at the station, Shinichi took Amro to the park to introduce them to his childhood friend, Karin. Karin was a skilled Robo commander who was popular with the local girls. Karin and Amro battled, and even though she was going easy on them, it was still a tough fight. It's probably worth pointing out that, while this is a game about toys, it's not a game selling toys. The robos were designed purely for the game and were never produced in real life. Also, there was never a Custom Robo anime despite the characters in the game feeling right in line with those of kids' shows from the era. For beating Karin, I got the data for the three-way gun. Something interesting about the parts that you gather is that their descriptions only include practical gameplay information and not numeric stats. Instead of simply choosing the weapon with the highest attack value, you have to consider for yourself which one best suits your needs. This was maybe the thing that most surprised me about the game. Karin invited Amro to an upcoming tournament at City Hall. At that point, I was allowed to freely roam around. I battled with some commanders in the schoolyard, including one tough student who took me 4 tries to beat. Fortunately, there are no consequences for failure in story mode, not even a game over screen. The game simply puts you back where you were before the fight started, so you can jump right back in, switching up your loadout first if you want to. Doing this battle taught me a lot about the importance of cover in this game. The developers at Noise were very deliberate about designing stages with lots of interesting terrain, and then incentivizing you to use it. But just as important as knowing how to use cover is knowing how to circumvent it. Bombs are a risky weapon because it's possible to damage your own robo with them, but if aimed properly, they can be lobbed over walls to flush out your opponent. Something that I really like is how the game spreads out its tutorials. Pretty much any time that I started a battle while Shinichi was present, he told me a little bit more about Custom Robo. He had a lot more tips to give than you might expect, and they got incredibly specific by the end, like detailing the 8 different types of explosions. If you ever want to review the tutorials you've seen, you can do so from the pause menu at any time. The menu also includes a glossary section with information about the world of Custom Robo. After a couple of days of battling, Amro went to sleep to rest up for their first tournament. So when I was a kid, I didn't really think about the fact that most of the video games that I liked were localized from somewhere else. After all, I live in the United States. Most of the television and movies that I was exposed to were from here, so it didn't really occur to me that games were any different. Something that was really pivotal in changing the way that I thought was Super Smash Bros. Melee. That game had 2 playable characters in it from a series that didn't even exist in English at the time. But that's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is the trophy gallery. By including release dates, it gave me a real sense that video games were a thing with a history to them. But I was particularly fascinated by those titles which, in lieu of a release date, listed that tantalizing phrase, Japan only. Games like Doshi and the Giant, Kuru Kuru Kururin, Famicom Detective Club, and of course, Custom Robo. The mysteriousness surrounding these titles had a massive impact on me. I'd like to think that the curiosity my younger self felt perusing those Melee trophies is the same curiosity that drives me to make these videos now. Amro's first opponent in the city tournament was named Fukashi. Amro had met Fukashi before, but on that occasion he faked an injury to get out of having to battle, so this was their first face-off. The stage was a fun underwater scene with fishies circling around the outside that could be used for cover. It was a pretty easy fight, and afterward, Fukashi faked an illness to explain his loss. In round 2, Amro and their cousin Shinichi were paired against one another. I love that Shinichi's robo Robin has glasses like he does. He had the vertical gun, one of my favorite weapons in the game. It fired 2 shots at a time, one straight ahead and the other upward in an arc, making it useful in a lot of different situations. Round 3 was against a kid named Hayao. Hayao was also new to Custom Robo, and he and Amro quickly became rivals. Our cubes landed next to each other, but my robo was the first to get up, giving me a massive advantage from the start. In round 4, Amro faced a jerk named Licht. Licht used my favorite pod in the game, the Zeker pod. It's the purple thing with the eyeball. Once deployed, it would very slowly move across the stage toward its target before eventually exploding. This was a challenging round for me because Licht's robo was a long-range fighter, and he liked to keep his distance. I should emphasize that there's no leveling up in this game. You can adjust your loadout to try to get an advantage against the particular opponent or on that particular stage, but you ultimately just have to keep trying. For me, this was largely a positive thing, but it was a bit unexpected for a game that advertises itself as an RPG. I won on the 4th try and was rewarded with a look at Licht's humiliated post-battle portrait. Amro's finals match was against their new pal Karin. The finals replaced the fishies with an equally cute turtle. When you battle characters who you've already faced earlier in the story, they usually have one or two new parts, but they always use the same base robo. In this case, Karin's Robo Flare had a new pod. Karin was shocked to lose, but she was happy for her friend. It was a sweet moment. For winning the tournament, Amuro received a trophy, which was then visible on their shelf for the remainder of the game. I got a ton of new robo parts from all of those tournament battles, and so I decided to try out an entirely new loadout. I switched my weapon to Shinichi's vertical gun, and my pod to Lict's seeker pod, both of which I've already mentioned. Also from Lict, I took the Crescent Bomb. This bomb would slowly lob in an arc while fired from the ground, but if fired from the air it would go fast in a straight line, giving it a lot of versatility. For legs, I went with Hayao's Long Vernier, which had a higher jump height and longer air dash distance, but also came with increased landing lag. I chose this set of parts kind of arbitrarily, but I ended up really liking them. They all felt like solid upgrades. The Customize menu has a sort of photo mode where you can look at your robo from different angles and even make it do different poses. Cute! Later on, Fukashi, the guy who Amuro knocked out round 1, was bullying some kids at the park, and Karin was standing up to him. After losing a battle to Amuro again, Fukashi stormed off, but he accidentally left behind his ID. One of his flunkies mentioned that Fukashi liked the Princess Commander Katlia, and that he might be at her house, so Amuro went there to return it. Katlia was the heiress of the Lambda Corporation, the company that manufactured Custom Robo. She hosted garden parties at her mansion, and only distinguished commanders were allowed to attend. On a whim, she let Amuro and the others stay. She had heard about Amuro's victory in the city tournament and decided to assess their strength for herself. Rather than battle them personally though, she instead left it to her security. The stage here was an adorable sushi conveyor. I really like the sense of scale in a lot of these stages. It really helps to communicate that you're playing with toys. This was where I got my first perfect, thanks largely to my vertical gun and seeker pods letting me stay out of the line of fire. After fighting the 2 security guards, I was then up against Katlia's grandfather on yet another cute stage, this time a Mario Party style birthday cake. Katlia allowed him to use her signature weapon, the Hornet Gun, which turned out to have a surprisingly literal name. Seeing Amuro's performance excited Katlia enough that she decided that she would enter the next tournament in order to face them. While most of my time with Custom Robo was spent in the story mode, I did briefly check out the arcade mode, which includes 3 different game types. In Challenge mode, you can select from 5 difficulties, which are unlocked by reaching various milestones in the story mode. In this game type, all of the parts are available for you to choose from, and you can even change which robo you play. After customizing, you fight a series of battles. Each round has a 120-second time limit, and you get a score at the end based on your remaining time and energy. Aside from that, it's pretty similar to the story mode, just, without the story. Free Battle is essentially a fighting game practice mode. Once a robo reaches 0 energy, it instantly gets repaired back to 1000, so you can battle for as long as you'd like. Lastly, Versus Battle is the proper 2-player mode. Custom Robo seems like it has the potential to be a very fun multiplayer game, but jumping straight into Versus Battle would probably be overwhelming, so you would ideally want to play with a friend who is also already done with the story mode. The Super Commander tournament consisted of 2 flights, and as the victor of the city tournament, Amuro had the right to enter both. In the first of these, Amuro's round 1 opponent was once again Fukashi. The first flight of the tournament took place on a snowy stage where the robos slipped around on the ice. After taking down Fukashi, Amuro was paired against an unnamed commander who was trying to get invited to Katlia's garden party. And then round 3 was a rematch against Lict. The finals were between Amuro and Katlia. Her robo, Belle, had purple hair and a pink bow just like Katlia herself. I was a bit worried when I saw that it was a little sprinter type. That's the same type of robo to which I suffered my first loss, and I hadn't seen another one since. However, I was now more experienced with the game, and had stumbled into a very synergistic build, and so I was able to win the fight. The Lambda Corporation president personally awarded Amuro with a trophy, and Katlia vowed to practice more in order to live up to her family's name. Then it was on to day 2 and the second flight of the Super Commander tournament. The first contest was against a mysterious scoundrel named Gosetz. You can scout an opposing robo's parts before any battle, and here I saw something that I hadn't seen before. The gun that he was using was flagged as illegal. It was a three-way gun, but with added shot tracking, which seemed pretty good. The icy stage of the previous day was replaced with a burning stage. The middle of the arena was unstable and would sometimes sink into lava, creating a new hazard. I continued to be a big fan of the stage variety in this game. After Amuro's win, an official tried to challenge Gosetsu's use of an illegal part, but he was furious at his loss and stormed off. From there, Amuro defeated a nameless child in round 2, and their round 3 opponent was an American commander named Jake. Jake had an interesting robo that wielded a flamethrower and bat-shaped pods. Meanwhile, Karin was also in the tournament, and her round 3 opponent was Hayao. I was rooting for her, but she lost, and so it was Amuro versus Hayao in the finals. His deal was that he was always acting like he didn't actually care about Custom Robo, but clearly he did care because otherwise there's no way he could have made it this far. Hayao's robo was equipped with a cool weapon called the Dragon Gun, but once again, I was victorious. In fact, I didn't lose a single battle for the entire Super Commander tournament. Amuro received yet another trophy, but Hayao skipped out on the award ceremony, leaving the second place pedestal empty. Karin was really down about her 4th place finish, but the game wouldn't let me say anything to reassure her. The next morning, she showed up at Amuro's house to challenge them to a battle. She hoped that this would help her determine what she was lacking. Honestly, she put up more of a fight than most of the tournament opponents. Shinichi, who is accustomed to being Amuro's coach, started giving Karin advice. They battled again, and she did seem to be improving. Shinichi going from being Amuro's sidekick to being Karin's sidekick was an extremely cute way to narrativize the game running out of tutorials to give the player. For winning both flights of the Super Commander tournament, Amuro was invited to participate in an exhibition match against the champion, Mamoru. There was a big turnout, with many of the characters I had met in the crowd. But moments before the battle could begin, Yurie, who was Mamoru's sister and Amuro's classmate, suddenly collapsed. The exhibition match was cancelled. Amuro and their friends decided to go to the medical center where Yurie was being treated by Amuro's mother and her assistant. Hayao was also worried about her, but he couldn't admit it, so he watched from outside. Mamoru assured everyone that there was nothing to worry about, and promised that he and Amuro would finish their match on the grand stage at the Great Robo Cup. At the end of that long day, Yurie and Amuro walked home together. She said that, when the two eventually did face off, she would cheer for Amuro over her brother. Now that we've met most of the characters, let's take a moment to look at the 10 types of robos that they use. First is the Shining Fighter type. Amuro uses this type, but it's also used by their rival Hayao. Next is the Little Raider type, which is used by Shinichi and Licht. There's the Aerial Beauty type, used by Karin. And the Large Vice type, used by Fukashi. The Little Sprinter type is used by Katlia. And the Funny Old Men type is used by her grandfather. There's the Sexy Stunner type, used by Jake. The Metal Grappler type is used by Gosetsu. The Trick Flyer type hasn't been used by any named characters yet. And finally, there's the Wild Soldier type, which is used by Mamoru. With all of these different types, I was a little disappointed that I was stuck using Rei. If it was up to me, I think that I would have used Aerial Beauty type Stella instead. Not because she shares a name with the protagonist of the last video game that I played, but simply because I love a girly robot. It shouldn't surprise you that one of my favorite robot designs ever is Fei Yen from Virtual On. As it happens, Custom Robo came out literally the day before the Dreamcast release of Virtual On Oratorio's Hangram. What a great time for robot fans that must have been. After my decisive victory in the previous tournament, I wanted to change things up going into the Great Robo Cup qualifiers. I equipped Katlia's Hornet gun, which had a long cooldown and relatively short range, but it fanned out over a wide area. I also took her idling bomb, which, if it missed, would stick to the ground a short while before detonating. The pod I went with was Fukashi's wave pod, which could only deploy one at a time, but it created a chain of 3 explosions covering a wide area. To get as far from my previous build as possible, the legs I went with were the ground legs. which had a fast running speed, but a limited jump height. Just like in the previous two tournaments, Amuro's first opponent was Fukashi. It was fun having to adapt to a different set of parts. I hadn't needed to worry about aiming my pod in a while since the Seeker pods basically handled themselves, and losing the excellent air dash of my previous legs made evasion much more difficult. But Fukashi was a jobber, and so I won anyway. Amuro's second round opponent was a mysterious newcomer named Sparu. Sparu used the Shining Fighter type like Amuro, and he also shared my taste in pods. When he lost, he claimed that he didn't care about winning or losing, just about testing his skills against Amuro's. The first loss that I took with my new parts was against a nameless commander in round 3. His stun gun weapon was a big problem for me, but on the second attempt I kept my distance and Amuro was on to round 4. Meanwhile, Shinichi was still coaching Karin. Since neither of them believed that they stood a chance in the Great Robo Cup on their own, they had decided that they would work together instead. She called this the Karin and Shinichi Love and Friendship Team Strategy. The Karin and Shinichi Love and Friendship Team Strategy turned out to be effective as I lost to this duo multiple times. Karin's Robo was too fast for Katlia's Hornet Gun, so I swapped that out for Hayao's Dragon Gun instead. And with that, I was able to win on my 4th attempt. Amuro's last opponent of the day was named Jiro. Jiro was Mamoru's old rival, but he had gone off to train and hadn't been seen in this city for quite some time. This was the most difficult battle in the entire game for me. Jiro's signature weapon, the Rayfall gun, was absolutely wild. It shot 4 homing projectiles that fanned out and came from above. If he fired it from the ground, the shots would linger a moment before homing in. But if he fired it from the air, they would go straight at me. The experiments had been fun, but my new loadout wasn't cutting it against Jiro, and so on my 10th try, I reverted to the tried and true and was able to quickly get the win. Immediately after that, I took Jiro's Rayfall gun and high jump legs and equipped them myself. The qualifiers were over, and Amuro had a few days to rest before the Great Robo Cup finals. Little did they know the plot was about to happen. Earlier in the video, I said that there was never a Custom Robo anime. Well, that's not entirely true. It turns out that there was a 7-minute long OVA. Though, despite it essentially being an advertisement for this video game, it differs pretty significantly in story and character designs. I suspect that it may have been commissioned early in the game's development, before those were finalized. Interestingly, it does use music from the game, however. The OVA is not particularly entertaining, but I still believe that Custom Robo could have made for a good TV series. At the school, a Robo went berserk and started wrecking things, and it was up to Amuro to stop it. The Robo would repeatedly use its melee attack, during which it was invulnerable and could approach very quickly. I won on the second try, after realizing that I could stand safely in the window and fire down at it. The ones responsible for the troublesome Robo were Subaru, Gosets, and a cool girl named Minamo. The 3 of them were part of a criminal organization called Dread. At the medical center, Amuro's mother's assistant, Homura, accidentally revealed that he was also working for Dread. He was trying to steal the experimental nanomachine technology that she was using to treat Yurie's illness. Homura used a trick flyer-type robo with an illegal part that was a modified version of the dragon gun. I focused on dodging the dragons and was able to win on my 3rd try. Karin had an older brother, Akira, who was a journalist attempting to infiltrate Dread. He had learned that Dread's funding came from illegal underground custom robo battles called Dark Battles. He wanted Amuro to enter the Dark Battles in order to help with his investigation. Amuro agreed, and the two went to an abandoned building in a dusty part of town, but beneath it was what looked like a casino. This was a bit of a slow stretch of the game. I was required to do several battles here, but these opponents didn't have any new parts for me to acquire, and Shinichi wasn't around to give tips anymore, so they ended up feeling kind of bland. Amuro and Akira were able to eavesdrop on a conversation between Homura and his boss, Shinonome, but they were found out by Subaru's gang and had to make a quick exit. There was a fight against Minamo that I was excited for. Unfortunately, I encountered a bug here, and all her robo did was stand still while I scored an easy perfect against her. Disappointing. On the day of the Grand Robo Cup Finals, Dread kidnapped Yurie. Mamoru blamed himself and rushed off to Dread headquarters to confront them. Amuro and their friends, surprisingly now including Hayao and Fukashi, followed after him to help save his sister. Once inside, the group split up. There were some great sequences of characters seeing each other separated by class. Like at the casino, there were a lot of battles here that weren't particularly memorable. After that, the group reunited and caught up to Mamoru. He was exhausted from fighting off 3 robos at once, so he stayed behind with the others to fight off pursuers while Amuro went ahead to rescue Yirie. What followed was a boss rush. First up was Gosetsu. He and the commanders who followed all had souped-up robos equipped entirely with illegal parts. This was a tough one. For one thing, his stage was covered in pitfalls that would trap my pods. But also, I was just having trouble avoiding his attacks. So on my second attempt, I played as aggressively as possible to turn it into a damage race. After Gosetsu was Minamo, who was doing her robo's makeup when Amuro entered. She's great. Because of the bug earlier, this was my first actual battle against her. It was a long-range shootout on a large map between 2 similar builds, but ultimately my unmodified Rayfall gun beat out her illegal one. The next opponent was Homura. This one was tough due to the lava surrounding his stage. The knockback on his modified dragon gun was really effective at pushing me into it. But also, if I wasn't careful, it was possible to accidentally shoot my cube into it and start the match out already damaged. After 4 tries, I prevailed, and then it was time to battle Sparu. His stage split apart like beginner floor 8 from Monkey Ball, which was cool, but this was the easiest battle of the bunch for me. Sparu said that he never cared about Dread anyway, he just liked violence. With Dread's Elite 4 defeated, the only one left to take to task was their boss. But before that, why don't we talk about the box? As with Blackrock Shooter the game in my previous video, Custom Robo sadly only had 1 box. This game did see release outside of Japan, however, that release was in China, and the IQ player didn't have boxes because its games were distributed digitally. On the cover, we've got an assortment of 6 robos, including the protagonists Rei, Karin's Flare, and Shinichi's Robin. I like how true these renders are to the look of the game. It's a good thing that the robos look simple and blocky because they're supposed to be toys. It's so easy for me looking at this to imagine holding one of these in my hand. I don't have strong feelings about the glow effects and the abstract background. I don't love them, but they do feel very Super Robot to me. I do really love the logo though. The robos transforming into a cube that you roll like a die is a really fun part of the Custom Robo concept, and the way that gets incorporated into the logo is really cute. The font works super well for it too. They managed to make that bow kana so blocky looking. Overall, I think it's a solid box. The bright colors really catch the eye. Amuro entered the chamber where Shinonome, leader of Dread, was keeping Yirie. There was a very goofy animation of him hiding behind his cape like Dracula. It would have been funny even if it only happened once, but the fact that it kept looping was fantastic. Shinonome used a wild soldier type robo, same as Mamoru, and he had a cool stage that looked like the inside of a space station. I haven't emphasized it enough so far that this game feels great to play. The movement feels right, the weapons feel right. Moving around and attacking is just fun to do, even when you're losing. Ultimately, that's what I loved most about this game. I won that fight on my second try, but in true final boss fashion, Shinonome had a second phase. This battle took place in the void of space. There was cover here, but it was all black, making it very difficult to see, let alone use effectively. To my relief, failure here did not force me to play the first fight over again. I beat this one on my 3rd try. Shinonome was shocked that a commander who hadn't come up in the dark battles could be this skilled. Then he fell to the ground, defeated. Yirie was rescued and rushed back to the medical center. Amuro's mom thanked them for saving her, but pleaded with them to stay out of trouble in the future. When Amuro, Mamoru, and Hayao didn't show up for the Great Robo Cup finals, Katlia pulled strings to have it delayed a week so that they could all participate. Oh right, there's still a tournament left to win. When the day finally came, Amuro was once again paired against Fukashi in the first round. Fukashi wasn't even supposed to be qualified for this tournament, but he managed to sneak his way in anyway because he just loved getting eliminated by Amuro that much. The next round was against Jake, who didn't want to disappoint his mom back home in America. The round after that was Katlia, who blessed me with an Ojo-sama laugh. And then round 4 was against Mamoru's old rival, Jiro. That's where I had my first loss of this tournament. The rayfall gun mirror match wasn't going my way, so I swapped back to the old vertical gun for the speed advantage and took him out. The finals were against Hayao. You might expect a touching moment of honesty between the rivals after what they had gone through together, but Hayao's facade was unchanged. After that, it was finally time for the title match against Mamoru. The whole game had been building to this moment. Mamoru had announced that he was going to retire after this tournament to focus on his studies, so this was Amuro's one chance to prove himself worthy of being his successor. I'll let you see for yourself how it went. After Amuro's win, their friends rushed the stage to congratulate them, and then they got their 5th and final trophy. There were some cute little scenes during the credits, like this one where Yurie, now healthy enough to play Custom Robo herself, was ready for her first battle. Amuro, Hayao, and Karin fought over the right to be her first opponent, but she ignored all of them and started playing with someone else instead. Completing Custom Robo's story mode took me 9 hours and 1 minute. I talk a lot about preferring shorter games, and that's true, but Custom Robo is one that I think could have been longer. Nevertheless, it's an excellent execution of its concept and lays a fantastic foundation for sequels to build upon. It's too bad that this game didn't have an official English release. If I could have played it back when I was in the target age demographic, I think I would have absolutely adored it. Though this is not an easy game. I imagine that it would be pretty challenging for someone of that age. Fortunately, Custom Robo has a really nice difficulty feature. If you fail a battle multiple times, it will offer to let you try again with the enemy weakened. Beginning with your 4th try, you can select Strength minus 25%, and at 7 tries, Strength minus 50% becomes available. I never took advantage of these options myself, but I was really glad to see them there. It seemed very ahead of its time to handle difficulty this way. Anyway, though I'm sad to have missed out on this game when I was young, I still really enjoyed playing it now. Thank you Star Trinket for the translation that made it more accessible. Thanks so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed exploring Custom Robo together with me. If you did, don't forget to let me know by pressing the like button. I'd like to give an additional thanks to these folks here for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to do the same, you can click the link in the video description. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos, and it would mean a lot to me if you'd help me continue making them in the future. Custom Robo is an easy one for me to slot into the rankings. I thought that this game was incredible. However, My World My Way has by far my favorite protagonist of any of the games on this list, whereas the main character of Custom Robo has no name, no face, and no personality. If you're going to have me play as a blank slate, the least you could do is give me some genders to pick from for them. So congratulations to Custom Robo, my new number 2 game. For my next video, I'll be playing a game from a popular genre with which I am wholly inexperienced. It's a game that was first released in Japan in 2003, but which didn't arrive in North America until 2008. I'll let you ponder about what game that might be, and I'll see you back here in a few weeks.